Unknown Sun by L.H. Chevalier. Chapter 1st. He was lying in a small meadow in the middle of a vast forest, letting the pleasant sunshine warm every part of his body. He watched the crystal-clear water flow in a nearby stream, pulling with it whatever came its way and wasn't heavy enough to resist it. When he suddenly felt something whistling around his head and heard the wild barking of hunting dogs, his heart began to sound as he realized what it meant. Death had come for him. He ran with panicked speed toward the forest, hoping to lose his pursuers among the thickets. The second arrow had barely missed his hind leg and stuck into the young tree nearby. From not far behind came a storm of laughter. "Seems you fell out of shape, Baron. Wouldn't you rather we show you how it's done?" mocked one of the two men crouching behind a fallen tree, out of fear that the third man holding a large hunting crossbow would hit him, whether by mistake or intention. All three men wore light blue tunics and dark green trousers. However, only one of them was armed with a crossbow. "Shape? He had that about 20 years ago." The taller one joined in, laughing so heartily his green buzz fell off, revealing his completely bald head. The Baron frowned. "I can hear you, Anthony." "At least his hearing is fine," Anthony muttered under his gray beard, brushing his cap on his other mate's shoulder and intently watching the further development of their hunt. The other hunter smiled all around, but still kept his distance from the Baron. "Just laugh, you idiots. I have enough arrows even for you." The Baron preferred concentration on the fleeing deer, which had stopped just in front of the first bush and watched something inside. Even the large gray dogs had stopped short of their target and just kept growling at him. However, the Baron did not intend to wait for his prey to run away again. "I don't know what you see there, son, but it'll cost you your life." He quickly pulled another arrow from his quiver, which hung around his waist. He inserted the arrow into his crossbow, tightened the string, aimed at the motionless animal, and fired. At that moment, an unknown boy emerged from the thick bush, and the deer jumped away in fear. But it was already too late. A flying bolt hit him in the right shoulder, and the boy roared in pain. Immediately, thick, red liquid spurted from his wound. Bloody animal. It simply had to move. "Bollocks! Look where you're running, you idiot!" The boy tried to grab the wound with both hands to stop the flow of blood, but soon lost consciousness and began to fall to the ground. The Baron jumped up to the young man and caught him before he fell. "Oof! You're pretty heavy, aren't you?" Both dogs started jumping at the unfortunate victim and tried to throw him to the ground. The Baron shouted at him. "Oh no, this is not an animal. Go!" He pointed his finger at Anthony, who whistled at them, and the canines immediately ran to him. "Help with him, you idiots!" he yelled at his faithful companions, who were still staring at him from their safe harbors. Anthony helped hold the boy, one on each side, and urgently told the third one, "Bandage him up, boy." "Bandage, sure." The young blonde looked around. "But with what?" "I don't know. Find something, but do it quickly." He took off his tunic and bandaged the victim's bleeding shoulder with it. Anthony looked surprised. "Well, that's something, I guess. Good job, young man." The Baron was breathing heavily, and drops of sweat were dripping from him all the time. "Yeah, good job," he hissed. "Let him go before you pass out on me." Anthony shouted at him, grabbing the boy with both hands. "He's not that heavy. I don't know what you're trying here, old man." He winked at him and took the boy in his arms. "Before you laugh too much," the Baron replied, wiping the sweat from his forehead, "remember you're older than me." He leaned against a side tree. "Just a few years and still in better shape. At least I still have some hair." The tree arched under his noticeable weight, and he had to let go of it so he wouldn't fall. "You don't have that much anymore, don't you think? Gentlemen?" The youngest of them spoke. "What?" they both shouted at him simultaneously. "The boy needs a doctor." They both looked at the wounded boy in Anthony's arms. "Yeah, that's probably true. Know-it-all." Okay. He thought for a moment before uttering orders. "You'll ride with him in front of you, and don't you dare drop him," he said to the young man, waving his finger in front of his eyes, then turned to Anthony. "And you, our strong man, will carry him over to the horse." And you're going to do what in the meantime? Anthony wanted to know. The Baron frowned. Come on, the boy is dying here. Anthony sighed and went to his companions, to the horses that they had tied to the trees at the beginning of the forest. The dogs followed him nicely, but kept a close eye on his catch, yet they never jumped on him. The Baron sighed. I am nicer to them than you are, but they still obey you more. You are too nice to them. They are dogs, not your kids, Anthony said, and then turned to the blonde. What's your name, anyway, boy? That would interest me, too. He looked at Anthony in confusion. Ivan, sir. You accepted me yourself. He stopped and pumped his chest. Well, yeah, but I accept every... Brag on the go, the panting Baron scolded. At the same time, he slipped on the uneven path. I'm fine. That was on purpose. How else? Anthony glared at him. I've been waiting for you. But as you wish. He continued walking through the woods. I can't remember everyone. Plus, you young ones all look the same. Exactly, agreed the Baron. Ivan smiled slyly, but said nothing. After a while, they reached the horses. Ivan untied them and jumped into the saddle, and Anthony handed him the boy. The anxious Baron studied the boy. I didn't even notice that he was covered in blood before. But so much blood can't be from just one small wound, can it? No, sir. Most of the blood is dried up, Ivan reassured him. He must have been like this before. If you didn't kill him, we'll ask him why, suggested Anthony with a smile, then set off with the unfortunate victim. What a great idea. The Baron, with slight difficulty, climbed into his horse and followed his companions. If those idiots hadn't provoked me, this would have never happened. It's all their fault. Fortunately, the castle wasn't far. In fact, they saw its high white walls, a narrow stone balcony at the back, and a lower light ochre wall that surrounded it from the outside, even as they mounted. They came to the castle from behind through a smaller gate, which the Baron added to the wall later so that he wouldn't have to go around the whole estate whenever he went hunting, which was, at the time, often. And in the end, it wasn't as useless as his dear half tried to convince him. The Baron subconsciously smirked as he thought about it. Meanwhile, the aforementioned lady was hanging freshly washed laundry alongside their maid. Like her, she was wearing a light blue dress tied with a gray apron. Her short black hair was tangled so that it wouldn't interfere with her work. You didn't stay there very long. We didn't even have time to wipe the under. She raised her head from work and noticed what Ivan was carrying. I told you to try fishing. Go for a doctor, dear. You can yell at us later, the Baron said resignedly. Please. I'll get him, the maid offered. Bollocks! They dismounted, and Anthony took over the boy again. Show him to me, said the Baroness. Poor boy. Which one of you is responsible? Anthony turned his head to the Baron. He defended himself. It all happened so fast. You always say that, dear. How always? I haven't shot anything in over a year. Anthony burst out laughing. You brag about it? And why is Ivan running around here half naked? She asked as he walked past her. He just smiled when he heard someone remember his name. That was his idea, the Baron explained eagerly. He thought of using his shirt as a bandage. In truth, it surprised me a little too, but we didn't have much time. She sighed. Hurry, take one of the hanging shirts. The one on the right should be dry by now. Thank you, my lady. He bowed and went to get dressed. The Baroness continued to the others, who were just passing through the kitchen. Where do you want him? In the guest room? Asked Anthony. This dirty? Are you insane? Just put him on the table in here, the Baron told him as they entered the spacious dining room and removed the candles from the long wooden table. The lady agrees? What? Yes, sure, agreed the surprised Baroness, who was still standing in the doorway watching what was happening outside. Here he goes. He placed the boy carefully on the table. The doctor came running, dressed in a pure white shirt and black pants with a brown briefcase in his hand and the maid on his heels. He was a stocky middle-aged man, his gray hair cut to a hedgehog, and always and everywhere he came clean-shaven. So, what do you bring me today? He untied the boy's makeshift bandage. Oh boy, I will need a couple of fresh bandages, some clean water, and a bottle of booze. You read my mind, but you probably shouldn't, Doc, the Baron joked. The doctor ignored him. And I need one of you to stay here as my assistant. The others, please leave. The Baron just waved. You stay here, Anthony. I'm going for the bottle. And you, dear? Dear? However, his wife was no longer in the room, and neither was the maid. I'd say she thought the same, Anthony chirped. I hate when she does that. With his head bowed, he left for the booze. The doctor smiled slightly. Well, Doc, I never thought you had it in you, Anthony said. You smiled. The doctor checked the boy's wounds and said nothing. Don't worry, Doc, your secret is safe with me. He slapped him across the back. As soon as he finished, their young companion brought a small bucket. The Baroness told me to bring you water. Ah, Ivan! Anthony snapped at him. He was so frightened that he almost dropped the bucket. You're going to help the doctor here. I just stay here, okay? Ivan preferred not to object. Sure. Here you go, you drunk, the Baron said, handing the alcohol to the doctor. Then he went out into the hall with his friend. Did you put aside a little at least? Said Anthony with a severe face. What do you think? The Baron theatrically pointed to 3 small but full glasses, smiling at them from a plain wooden chair, which he left around the corner just out of the doctor's sight. He patted him on the shoulder. Good job. They heard the Baroness in the dining room say, I have the clean bandages here, Doctor. Then she followed them to the hall and closed the door behind her. I don't like that shrimp. He has no sense of humor, the Baron complained. Heh, I don't think he likes you very much either, Anthony said. Why don't we just replace him? We could do that, but you'll find a new one yourself. So that's why. Calm down, you smarties. He's a doctor and he's good, and that's all that matters. The Baroness jumped into their discussion. But he's still weird, the Baron insisted. I don't deny that, his wife admitted. Finally, something that we agree on, Anthony joined in. We have to drink to that. The Baroness saw the shots and clapped her hands. Ah, great idea. A drink to health. Her husband handed her one of the glasses, and they tapped together. Cheers! They turned the glasses upside down. Anthony shuddered as if he had a cold. Health of the boy, you mean? Of course, the Baron agreed with an unpleasant grin. Only to the Baroness the alcohol apparently did nothing. Why do you drink it if you don't like it? I don't know what gave you that idea, dear. He tried to smile, but couldn't. His wife sat comfortably in the chair. Now you can tell me what happened. The Baron watched in surprise as his dear half occupied the chair that he had brought for himself. In the end, he just passed it in a silence. So, he began, in the morning I looked out the window. The Baroness placed her hand on his shoulder. In the woods, dear. In the woods. Do you want to know what happened or not? Yes, but then don't interrupt me, darling. He snapped, turning to his friend beside him. You, stop smiling like a baby and bring me a chair. One little shot, and he's already giving orders, Anthony muttered to himself as he was leaving. As I was saying, I looked out the window in the morning. The Baron started telling his story. The doctor opened the door. I'm done here, but I need to talk to you, even though I really don't want to. And he went out into the hall and closed the door behind him. Would you like one since you're done? The Baron offered him an entire bottle, which they had to bring while the doctor was working. It was empty. I haven't been here for that long, have I? He looked back out the window behind him. The sun was still shining. He gave him an offended look and continued. The boy is... Shut! Shouted Anthony and started laughing a little louder than appropriate, given the sleeping boy in the next room. Did they drink the whole bottle? Surprisingly, he's fine. The Baron scratched his head. Did you treat the right person? He had a hole in his chest. Shoulder, and he doesn't anymore. Sure you did. That. Anthony was trying to remember what he meant. He stitched him up, the Baron reminded him. Exactly. That's why we called you, you see? The Baron rolled his eyes. Go to bed. You're drunk as a ferret and you're babbling nonsense. He waited for Anthony to leave. His wife won't be happy, so how about the boy? Why didn't the Baroness watch over them? I pulled an arrow from his body, but when I turned around, his wound was healed. No! The Baron opened his mouth in surprise and sent a sweet smell of alcohol the doctor's way. Where is she, anyway? Or at least, the muscle tissue. The skin didn't heal, so I had to stitch that. Huh! The Baron scratched his chin. So in the end, Anthony was right. Maybe I should change jobs. Where's your wife, anyway? She dropped out first between us, he whispered, leaning in. Women can't stand their drinks. Cha-cha! So much for the wisdom of the elders. In any case, he has scars in various places on his body, but from none of them would be so much blood on his clothes. He got out of his chair. I'll come back to check on him in a few hours. In the meantime, let him sleep. I recommend the same to you. You certainly wouldn't want to scare him. The Baron was confused. Why me? But the doctor was already gone. Idiot. He just sat there, waiting and waiting. Well, maybe he was right, he whispered to himself and went to the bedroom, but he was leaning against the wall all the way. The doctor watched him through the crack between the door and shook his head as he was leaving. And I'm the idiot here. What a jerk.